I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is a case of an alleged murder plot filled with sex, deception, BDSM, and extreme violence. A plan so twisted, you might wonder how anyone could even think it up. And the target, the mother of the suspect's own 4-year-old child. Here's the story. In Herndon, Virginia, a shadowed conspiracy lurks behind a manicured suburban facade. Brendan Banfield, a former IRS criminal investigator, is accused of orchestrating a chilling double murder of a man named Joseph Ryan and his own wife, Christine Banfield. Prosecutors allege he lured Joseph Ryan to his home early in the morning to make him appear as an intruder, coming to kill Christine with a knife. Banfield allegedly shot Ryan and then stabbed his wife with help from his lover, family au pair Juliana Magalhães. Juliana was the first to be arrested and charged in the case, but then she admitted her guilt and will be the star witness in the case against the husband, Brendan Banfield, who claims his innocence. What is the truth? Who killed who, and why did they do it? That will be up to a Virginia jury to decide. When I say twisted, this is absolutely twisted. So when we talk about Brendan Banfield, let's remember, this guy is an armed IRS agent, all right? An armed, trained IRS agent. So the morning of the double killing, where Joseph Ryan is shot and Christine Banfield is stabbed to death, both dead inside the home, Brendan Banfield's not there because his wife was transported to the hospital, so he's with her. Who's left behind? The au pair. Take a listen.
He was saying drop
the knife or the gun?
The gun. And Brendan said, no, please don't drop the knife. And he was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her. And I don't know, he started stabbing her. I think Brendan shot him, and he asked me help to shot him too because...
So you can hear the au pair in that statement. This is right out of the box, is conceding that it was her and it was Brendan who, you know, responded to the scene and had to shoot Joseph Ryan. But they're saying that Joseph Ryan was stabbing Christine Banfield to death, right? So she's admitting this, but let's pull it back a second and get to the first question in our investigation, because this is an important one, really important. What was the alleged murder plot? So what was the plan, this sick, twisted plan that prosecutors say was put together in all of this? Here to help answer that question is Lauren Conlon, host of the Outlier podcast and Pop Crime TV reporter. Also with us, retired police commander Mike King, also the host of the podcast Profiling Evil and the author of the new book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. Thank you both for being here. What I want to do is I've got a little bit of an outline here. I just want to go through it for everyone, and then let's sort of pick it apart here. It begins, the husband, Brendan Banfield, created a profile for his wife, Christine Banfield, on a social networking site, FetLife. That profile then matched with the male victim, Joseph Ryan. We'll talk about FetLife. Joseph began messaging the person he thought was Christine, right? So the guy who gets shot in the home, Joseph Ryan, is messaging the person he believes is Christine, and plans formed for a meetup at the Banfield's house. We also know that Juliana Magalhães, the au pair, pretended to be Christine in a voicemail that she left for Joseph Ryan. Joseph thought this was going to be a consensual, sexual encounter. Christine bought tickets for her daughter and Juliana to go to the zoo that day. They were going to leave early that morning. Brendan seemingly leaves for work, but instead sits in a nearby McDonald's parking lot. The alleged plan was for Juliana to call him when she saw the male victim pretending then to see a strange man, and Brendan would rush home. So Juliana is supposed to be near the house, sees a strange man, and then is supposed to tell Brendan, who then rushes home. Here's where everyone was when Joseph Ryan was arriving at the house. Juliana was parked outside the house, then comes inside. Christine is asleep in the bedroom. The daughter is in the basement after Juliana, the au pair, brings her inside, and Brendan is rushing home from McDonald's. Juliana and Brendan then follow Joseph into the master bedroom armed with guns. They say they find Joseph stabbing Christine. Joseph is shot to death and Christine dies from the stab wounds, but the alleged allegations are that Joseph's not stabbing Christine, but Brendan is killing his wife with the knife. Okay. Mike King, I'll just begin with you because you've seen a lot, you've heard a lot. Just give me a number, 0 to 10. How sick and twisted is this alleged plot by this IRS agent?
Well, Vinny, I'll give you a 10 on that particular card. I mean, this is really terrifying to think that anyone would fantasize about something like this, spend the time planning something like this, either groom someone to help him or maybe was groomed by that someone to participate in something like this. And so what we really need to do in cases like this is we start breaking down all of the precipitating factors that led up to this homicide, then look at the homicides themselves, but most importantly, then evaluate the behavior during the event. And we see these criminals kind of go through this process of being organized, and then the crime starts unfolding and disorganization occurs. And we actually see that in this particular case, and we'll probably talk about that. But then the behavior after the event, because all of it really teaches us a whole lot more about what happened. It's more important to listen to the things that are not being said in a case like this than what's being said.
Lauren Conlon, FetLife, not your everyday website. Now, it's consenting adults that go on there. People can do whatever they want to do. But my guess is it doesn't sound to me like something that Christine herself would necessarily go on to meet people.
I mean, look, we really don't know anyone, of course, but I'm going to go ahead and side with you, Vinny. I don't necessarily think Christine was into that based on what I've learned. I've heard amazing things about her, and I've read amazing things about her. But what is so troubling right now is there was a very recent pretrial hearing, I believe last week, where Brendan Banfield's attorneys are almost suggesting alleged police misconduct here. Brendan Banfield's attorneys are saying that there were detectives within the Fairfax County Police Department who may have actually believed that Christine was the one sending these messages, and his attorneys are suggesting that they were removed from this case. And there could be a reason for that. And the judge agreed and actually requested that Fairfax County Police Department send over all correspondences about this case internally.
Yeah, and this is from the Washington Post. Banfield's defense attorneys took aim at the impersonation theory in court Thursday, arguing that Fairfax police commanders reassigned 2 detectives who thought some evidence suggested Banfield's wife was the one sending messages to the man who died alongside her. But a summary of the case written by Detective Brendan Miller last year repeatedly describes the online conversations as between Joseph Ryan and Christine Banfield, and it states there is no indication that Christine lost control of her devices during the 6 weeks before the slayings. The detectives who testified Thursday that they felt pressured by commanders during the investigation are still involved in preparing the case for trial this fall, and prosecutors said they were transferred for, quote, performance management reasons. Mike King, isn't is this a difficult thing to prove, that it's a fake profile on this FetLife that is actually being done as part of the plot versus Christine, the mother of this 4-year-old in the suburbs of Virginia, trying to hook up with some rando for some knife play?
Well, I mean, it certainly is going to be great fodder for the defense, I think, Vinny, because if they can continue to cast doubt on who was really writing that information and sending that information, that's one thing. But when you start putting the thing together in totality, when we have clear testimony, apparently, according to public reports, that Juliana is going to come forward and say, I made a phone call to Ryan and I told him I was Christine, well, there would be no reason for things like that to happen. They might be able to show through an IP address whether this originated on a device that Brendan had sole responsibility for, sole access to. But I mean, think about Chad Daybell taking over emails from his wife and sending Charles Vallow notes on those things. It would appear that the owner of that mobile device or that desktop device is sending the information. So for this to become a claim, I think is merely a way to say, hey, there's a question here that needs to be answered. And the police department certainly has to answer why those officers were transferred or moved. And sometimes, Vinny, you just do that because officers get tunnel vision in a case. And I always think of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle saying it is a capital mistake to theorize before you have facts, because you spend all your time twisting the facts to meet a theory. And that's not the kind of investigator we want out there. So I just am not as upset about that as maybe some people are.
All right, great news. Lauren and Mike are going to stay with us. Coming up next, how did the husband and au pair get caught?
Today, I'm pleased to announce that due to the hard work of police and prosecutors, the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Ryan Kohberger accepted a plea offer.
A shocking turn of events.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Convicted killer Brian Kohberger will learn his fate for murdering 4 Idaho college students.
He is the boogeyman.
And come face to face with the families of his victims.
And I pray that we have justice.
The sentencing of Brian Kohberger. Live coverage begins next Wednesday morning, only on Court TV.
I don't know.
What?
It's crazy her. I heard, I don't know what was that. And Brendan said, police dropped the knife, because he had a knife. And then he said, drop the gun to Brendan. They were yelling. I couldn't understand.
That's the au pair describing to responding officers what she claimed to have encountered inside the home, which was her boss, right? Christine Banfield, the mother of the girl she's supposed to be taking care of, being spanked by this man, Joseph Ryan, who has a knife in his hand. That's what she's describing there. That all has fallen apart after this investigation. Take a listen to the big announcement in this case, which was the arrest of the husband.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that due to the hard work of police and prosecutors, the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan. Fairfax County police officers took Brendan Banfield into custody, and he's been brought to the same adult detention center where Juliana Magalhães has been since last year when she was arrested for the murder of Mr. Ryan.
She was arrested first, then took a while for him to get arrested, and that brings us to the next question in our investigation. How did the husband and au pair get caught? How'd they get caught? It took a while to arrest him. Helping us with our investigation, Lauren Conlon and Mike King. Let's take a quick listen, Lauren, to Chief Davis here talking about Brendan.
Brendan become a suspect in this case? I know initially the narrative was that Joseph stabbed Christine. At what point did you stop believing that and begin to look at Brendan?
So that kind of gets back to our efforts to kind of describe gently that we can't go into certain aspects of the case, and that's one of them. So again, there's a a jury that will assemble, and they're going to hear these facts in much greater detail than you're hearing them today.
Okay, he's not giving us a lot of details, but we do have some photos, Lauren. I don't think you have to go much past the nightstand here. This is several months after the killing of Christine and Joseph Ryan. And this is the nightstand, Lauren, in the master bedroom. I'm seeing some things here. I spy a photograph of the au pair with her head on the shoulder of the IRS agent. What else do I spy on the nightstand? Let's take a look. I spy 2 water bottles in case you get dehydrated in the bed. Not 1 water bottle, but 2. I spy those. I spy something else. I spy some Victoria's Secret body lotion. I don't think that is used by most IRS agents. I may be wrong here. Lauren, what do you think?
Well, Vinny, I mean, there's motive right there for you. By the time police arrested Juliana, she had completely moved herself into the master bedroom. Absolutely no shame. She and Brendan had been seen on trips together, posting about it on social media. Police discovered they went to a gun range together a few weeks before. He taught her how to shoot, and then they bought a gun. They both got new phones a few weeks before the murders. And then prosecutors are alleging that Brendan Banfield actually drove Juliana to the Brazilian consulate to apply for a new passport, which made them think, oh, okay, are they going to run? Could they run? I mean, these guys are just so arrogant and so silly, Vinny. And I have to think that Juliana on jailhouse phone calls when she was arrested first and he was walking free for a year, I'm sure they said some things. I'm sure Brendan Banfield may have not said anything directly, but I'm sure if prosecutors kind of dissected some of those conversations, there would be some information there. There would be Brendan Banfield probably a little bit worried. Would Juliana tell? Is she going to tell? But I think that when it comes down to it, when this case finally gets to trial this fall, I think the text messages between Brendan Banfield and Juliana, which I'm sure through Telegram or some secure app, I think those are going to say a lot, and they're going to tell us a lot.
Mike King, he's an IRS agent. He has some training. He has time to allegedly, go through and figure this whole plot out. But the motivation seems pretty obvious on the nightstand.
Yeah, I think you're right, Vinny, and I think it's going to really play out heavily. He was somehow either smitten by her, or it was a plan from the beginning to be with the nanny and to have all of this happen. And so I think it's going to be really important. I keep going back to this idea of the thing that trips up most murderers isn't good police work or witnesses. It's the arrogance that they have, this belief that they somehow are smarter than the system, or that they've covered every track. And so when I spoke earlier about this idea of coming into these crimes in an organized manner, but then once things start unfolding, when things start happening, and I have so many darn questions on this one, Vinny, because I'm not buying the timetable of when Christine dies versus when Ryan dies, and a whole bunch of other things, just because of that 911 call. We can hear Ryan in the background, but we can't hear Christine, and I would think there would be a lot of screaming going on inside of that room. But we see this disorganization where Brendan stops that 911 call that first is made and tells her to hang up. And I see some little bit of fixing going on. But then the staging we learn about later, the blood spatter and the movement of the bodies, and all of this kind of points to this idea that they had a great plan in place, if in fact they're responsible for this murder, and that it fell apart in the course of committing the homicides. So we see him going from organized to disorganized and starting to make big mistakes that people like you that were prosecuting cases like this would have been able to take advantage of. And I think that's what we're going to see come out in this court case.
Yeah, Lauren, we can also take a look at the closet. There's like a before and after picture of the closets and where particular clothes were. And this is the au pair's closet, and this is at an earlier date. I can't quite read that, but that's at February 24th of 2023. And if you look at that one item, oh, we got to go back to it. We just missed it. There we go back to it. You look at the one item there on the left, that really sticks out to me because I know those are the colors of the great soccer team from Brazil, the green and the yellow, very prominent in the au pair's closet. Then you flash forward from February to October, and we go into the primary bedroom closet, and goal! There it is. The jersey ends up now there. Like, I mean, the proof is there. She basically assumed the role of Christine here.
It's sick. I mean, they have no shame, and I think it's just from just a perspective from me. You know, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and it just makes me so sick to my stomach, Vinny, allegedly that they could do something like this, especially, you know, Brendan Banfield. He has a daughter with Christine. Juliana, she cares for this daughter. Allegedly, she really cared about this child. Why would you take their mother away? I mean, this is just such a cliche. And again, I'm really anxious for this to go to trial so more information comes out. Because at this point, if what they are alleging is true, Juliana's ass needs to be deported back to Brazil, or she needs to do the max 10 years. And Brendan Banfield, they need to get that conviction, and he needs some psychiatric help.
Absolutely. Lauren Conlon, Mike King, thank you both so much. Up next, does the au pair's news story make sense? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the alleged murder plot of Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan, who died one morning as the result of extreme violence. And prosecutors say it was all a twisted plot by an armed IRS agent who wanted to share his bed with a young Brazilian au pair instead of his wife, the mother of his 4-year-old child. Here's the story. Brendan Banfield, the former IRS criminal investigator, is accused of masterminding a twisted and calculated plot to murder his wife, Christine Banfield, inside their Herndon, Virginia home. Prosecutors allege that Brendan, seeking to escape his marriage and pursue a secret affair with the family's Brazilian au pair, Juliana Magalhães, posed online as Christine to lure a man, Joseph Ryan, under false pretenses of a sexual encounter. Once Ryan arrived, Brendan allegedly shot him in the head, then turned the knife on his own wife, stabbing her to death. The au pair, who later pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, claimed she participated under Brendan's influence. Authorities say the murder scene was staged, but Brendan maintains his innocence. Was this a chilling act of betrayal, seduction, and premeditated violence fueled by lust and deception? Or is the husband the victim of a lying au pair lover? The murder trial is set for October of 2025. Unbelievable story. Or should I say unbelievable stories, because we've heard varying accounts of exactly what was going on and what happened that day. Let's begin with the au pair, who is at the house when responding officers are there, and they begin to interview her, and she's telling them her story about what's happening, and she's very emotional at the time. Let's take a look and a listen.
I was going out with Juliana.
Okay, yep, she said you were there.
And then I forgot our lunch to bring it. And I was coming back to the house to get the lunch. And I called her, why the car is here? to see what's going on. And I heard the guy was, I don't know who was. I don't know what he was doing. It's banging her. I don't know.
What?
It's banging her. I heard, like, I don't know what was that. And Brendan said, police dropped the knife, because he had a knife. And then he said, drop the gun to Brendan. They were yelling. I couldn't understand. They were super fast.
Okay. Okay. You want me to see if I can try to get you some water? Yeah.
She needs water. There's some on the nightstand. She can get it from there. Well, that's her initial story, right? So that's the initial story of the au pair, the day that Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan are killed inside of that home. Now, she's taken a deal, so she's pleaded guilty, so she obviously has a news story. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. And this will be important at trial. Does the au pair's news story make sense? We just heard the old story. Here to help answer that question, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist Dr. Judy Ho. She is also the author of the book, The New Rules of Attachment, and private investigator and founder of Victims News Online, Erica Morse. She's also the host of the all-new podcast, The Delphi Dirt. Fantastic. Okay. Erica, let me put this up on the screen, because before we get to the news story, let's just dig a little bit more into this old story that she has. And this is according to the Washington Post. Her initial story was that she and the husband, Banfield, had told police that after Banfield initially interrupted this supposed home invasion by Joseph Ryan and shot him once, Ryan was still alive, and Magalhães then fired the fatal shot. Is there anything about the initial story that makes any sense to you before we compare it to the news story, Erica?
No, the story is so convoluted already that it just even, to me as an investigator, this kind of sounds horrible, but it kind of gets more fun because you really get to poke holes in more and more and more. Listen, there was a lot happening allegedly within a 2 or 3 minute span. She leaves the house, they're going to the zoo, she forgets the lunch, she runs back, there's a strange car, she goes in, there's a man, this all breaks loose. A lot had to happen in that few minutes for all of these things to come together. And either they are the unluckiest people that we've ever seen, or they're planning that just went wrong.
Let's get to the news story now, okay? In October, the au pair sat down with police and prosecutors and provided a lengthy statement recanting the claim of a home invasion, court records show. She said Brendan Banfield had planned the killings and arranged for Joseph Ryan to appear at the house with a knife as a result of online discussions the two men previously had, one man posing as Christine, obviously. And this is according to WRC in D.C. News 4 has now learned that in October, the au pair confessed to prosecutors and detectives that Brendan Banfield constructed the entire double murder plot and that he even intentionally planned to bring his young child into the home. Dr. Judy Ho, this is twisted stuff we're talking about. Does the news story make sense to you that the IRS agent husband is the mastermind of all of this and is the one who went online to lure this Joseph Ryan to come over to the house with a knife?
Well, Vinnie, it may have been Brendan's idea, but he needed someone to help him execute the idea. And so I see that in the news story. Juliana is essentially taking almost no responsibility, basically saying, hey, I just did it under pressure, under the fact that he coerced me. But if you watch her behavior carefully while she was detailing the old story, and again, I want to stress that when people are under trauma, they are going to respond in different ways. But now that we know that there's this news story and that she did plead guilty, going back to look at her behaviors in that first video footage you showed, suggests that maybe some of it was put on. A couple of things that stood out to me. There was a time when she forgot Brendan's name. She was stumbling over her husband and she was kind of doing this gesture with her hand and saying, his name is Brendan. Well, now we know that the accusation, the story is that they were having an affair. So clearly she knew his name. And then just at different points where she was so broken down, she couldn't form a sentence. Now looking in retrospect, it may have been that her story wasn't that well constructed because it's not actually what happened. And she was using some of that more fanatical behavior to try to buy herself some time before she could come up with the next piece of the narrative.
Erica Moore, she is going to be the most important witness, I believe, for prosecutors in the case, right? They're going to have some forensic stuff as well that they'll try, but it's really the au pair. Got a sweetheart deal, by the way, in all of this, but she's the one who's going to get up on the witness stand to tell the jury the story of this plot. Do you think it's going to be a problem for prosecutors to have to lean that heavily on her testimony, or can she get up there, tell the story, and have the jury believe it?
I think it will depend on the digital forensics. If I were investigating this trial, I would focus specifically on that social media, because from prosecutor's standpoint, she not only helped lure him via text, but allegedly participated in at least one phone call that would have lured him in. Because remember, they needed a female voice to finalize the story and convince Ryan Joseph was a real potential meeting for him. So if that digital evidence shows up at this trial, it could impeach her testimony. And I think that that could surprise her. I think it could throw her off. And, again, if there are unanswered questions leading into a trial, they're going to come up at some point, whether it's in the trial or afterwards in an appeal process. These questions don't just go away. They hang out there forever.
Let me ask you, Dr. Judy Ho, how important do you think it'll be for the jury to know who seduced whom here, right? Like, was it the au pair who, flirtatiously tried to seduce the husband, or the husband who got his eyes on the Brazilian au pair and couldn't think about anything else? Will that matter to the jury?
I think that's less important. It might matter in terms of character, right? How do you feel about these two individuals and who might have been the instigator of the romantic relationship? But there are, sadly, many affairs that occur, and nobody ever talks about killing the spouse or their current partner. So how did it get there? That, I think, is going to be the key piece that the jury's going to have to think about and respond to. Although whoever was the instigator, if they're also the mastermind, were kind of built up from this affair to, I wish this person wasn't even here, hindering our relationship, then if there's a link that way, I think that will be important for the jury to consider.
Erica Morris, she's much younger than he is. She's from another country. Do you think there'll be any sympathy potentially for this au pair, or will she be seen as a killer?
I think she may be seen as a killer. I think that she could be labeled a gold digger. I think that when we start looking at her behavior on social media, listen, I have a Brazilian sister, and their culture is very different, and they flaunt certain things that necessarily Americans do, and that's not disparaging. That's just how they are. And so I think that it's going to depend on the jury. I think that we'll take a look at who's on the jury and how they view how she acts on the stand. Will she be professional? Will she be quiet? Will she be somber and reserved? Will she be a little bit more arrogant, flaunt that, kind of her personality? So it could be to the jury as well. And there could be some sympathy, I think, that this man was lured in, and she saw some real potential, from a financial perspective.
By the way, same jury pool that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard had down in Virginia. We're in the same courtroom. Big thanks to Erica Morris. Thank you so much. Great to see you. Dr. Judy Ho is going to stick around. Still to come, will the daughter, that young daughter, be a witness in the case?
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Terrible. Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins this August on Court TV.
Okay, so you live here?
I'm Vinnie. Au pair.
You're an au pair? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It was a lot of blood.
So we've been saying throughout the investigation tonight that is the au pair. So the au pair is for a child. It's for the Banfield's daughter, who was just 4 years old at the time. I want you to take a look at this from the Washington Post, doing some great reporting on this. Fairfax County prosecutors want to use the young girl's video-recorded statement from that morning against her father. Banfield's husband and their au pair engaged in a ruse to convince the 4-year-old that a strange man had entered the house uninvited. The girl told the interviewer that the au pair, not her mother, had woken and dressed her that day. Excuse me. And that she wanted me to be quiet because my mom was still sleeping. The 4-year-old reported that while they were in the car, Juliana forgot the lunch and that somebody strange that we didn't know came to our house. The prosecution brief says the girl said that the au pair told daddy to drive very fast. By the way, that girl who was 4 is now 7 and has been living with the father's mother, Brendan Banfield's mother, grandma, since the killings. So that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Will the daughter be a witness in the case? Will she have to take the stand? Will they be able to use her statement as a witness against her father? Still here helping us with our investigation, Dr. Judy Ho. And joining us in Hampton, Virginia, Commonwealth's attorney, Anton Bell. Anton, great to see you tonight. Great to catch up with you. Legally, in all of this, can you get the statement in? Can you put a 7-year-old on the witness stand? Do you even want to? How does Virginia deal with an issue like that?
So I have prosecuted a case, matter of fact, recently, last year, where I did put a 7-year-old on the stand, and he was my star witness. So yes, you can put a 7-year-old on the stand. And by the way, he was 4 when he witnessed the dead body of his 3-year-old sibling at the hands of his father. And so, yes, a 7-year-old can testify. However, in this situation, the prosecutor is trying to admit the forensic examination of the then 4-year-old daughter. Now, under the U.S. Supreme Court law, Crawford v. Washington, normally a defendant has the right of confrontation. As such, any testimonial evidence is going to be barred unless that person comes to court and testifies against that particular defendant. However, Virginia has carved out some exceptions. And one of those exceptions is Virginia Code 19.2-268.3, which states that if a child is under the age of 13 and they make an out-of-court statement, that statement can come in if 2 prongs are met. The first prong is there has to be sufficient evidence of some type of indicia of reliability based on the totality of the circumstances. And then secondly, either that child testifies or that child is declared to be unavailable by the court. And if they're declared to be unavailable by the court, there has to be some corroborative evidence of the act being committed. Under the circumstances here, I find it very difficult to find that that child is going to be deemed unavailable for this fact only. You're stating that the paternal grandmother has custody of the child.
Right.
If the defense wants that child to testify or be cross-examined, certainly they're going to make that child available to testify. And as such, if that child is available to testify, she's going to have to take the stand.
Yeah. Let's talk about reliability, Dr. Judy Ho. I think to myself, like my earliest memory on Earth is when I was 4 years old. It's nothing like what this child went through, but it was the 1969 Miracle Mets. Bingo. Like I remember the celebration. Can we rely upon the memories in something like this, a very traumatic event to a certain extent, for a 4-year-old?
Yeah, Vinny, good point. And most people will say that their first memories are around the age of 4 or 5. And also, it's not very continuous at that age. People might have one specific memory that it could be months or a year before they recall another memory around that same time frame. And to your point, memories that are tried by the individual to be recollected at a future time, especially when it's under traumatic instances, is not really all that reliable. First of all, memory itself is not a playback. It is a conglomerate of a lot of different things, including narratives that other people tell you, perhaps things that you add to the picture as you think about it more and more. Obviously, in a situation like this, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to be talking to the child about these memories, asking child questions about these memories. Even specific types of questioning could then bleed into what she believes is an actual memory and not just a question somebody asked about something that may or may not have happened. But what we also know is that memories that are being recalled when it was a traumatic instance is further disruptive. In fact, one of the symptoms of PTSD for many individuals, including children, is that certain parts of the memory is just not there. They can't recall it no matter how hard they try. Now imagine a child who is being pressured by adult or adults to recollect specific instances during that day. They're more likely and more prone to say yes to things, even if that's not part of their memory at all. Whereas adults are also likely to do that, but a little bit less because we're a bit more assertive overall. And we can say, no, that wasn't part of it. For a child, that's a lot more difficult to hold that line.
Let me ask you, Anton, do you think prosecutors need her statement? Do you think they need her testimony in this case? We have about 30 seconds here.
I think they're trying to present a ruse, and as a result of that, they're trying to say she can confirm that this is the plot that they had. However, I don't think you need it in order to put it on. Your main witness is going to be the au pair. That's your main witness.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be difficult for that child. You don't know what she's going to say. She's been living with his mother, so that's the other problem. Anton Bell, great to catch up with you. Dr. Judy Ho, always a pleasure. In the end, no one will suffer more from this than that little girl whose mom was violently murdered. When she's old enough, she's going to read about what happened. She'll read about it on the internet, and she will have so many questions about her father and the au pair who were supposed to protect her and instead turned her life upside down. And for what? That's what I want to know. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.